Story 1. Playing music or videos on your phone speaker in public is inconsiderate. Nobody wants to hear your TikTok videos on the bus or your FaceTime conversation in a restaurant. Headphones were invented for a reason, but people act like they do not exist. Story 2. Picking up something hot or cold at the grocery store, deciding you do not want it, and leaving it to spoil somewhere. Story 3. Not allowing people to exit a train or bus before boarding and pushing through those trying to get off. In Switzerland, it is customary to stand to the side of the door to let passengers exit before boarding, avoiding any pushing. Story 4. Doom scrolling with your speaker volume turned up on public transportation. Story 5. Internet pranks are awful. It is terrible that these pranksters can enter Walmart, bother people who are minding their own business, and then humiliate them online with almost no repercussions. Story 6. Companies scrape every excruciating detail of millions of people's daily lives, including when they walk, when they drive, where they live and work, when and where they sleep, their hobbies, their relatives, the room they sleep in, the car they drive, and more. They sell that information to advertising agencies. Because many people will see this, I want to offer encouragement. It is easy to feel discouraged when this happens so often, but do not lose hope. If we fight it, we will win. Story 7. Using the phone speaker to blast music, play games, or watch videos on a crowded bus or train. Story 8. Filling a shopping cart at the grocery store and then just leaving. Story 9. Cutting in line when it is technically allowed, such as at a buffet or an event, but everyone hates you for it anyway. Story 10. Face the back of the elevator instead of turning to face the door. Story 11. One driver drove up and took a parking spot that another driver had been waiting for because the vehicle exiting the spot was in their way. Story 12. Serving shrimp with the tail still on when it is already mixed into dishes like pasta or rice. Story 13. Leaving a shopping cart in the middle of the parking lot after you have finished loading your vehicle is not illegal, but it makes you look lazy and inconsiderate. Story 14. Having zero situational awareness. Blocking an aisle with your shopping trolley while talking to someone. Walking 3 or more side by side. Forcing others to go around you, especially on narrow paths by busy roads where pedestrians would have to step into the road to pass. Cutting directly in front of someone and then stopping or walking very slowly. Parking in front of someone's house or driveway. Taking up limited spots to visit a nearby park even though it has its own car park. Where on earth are the residents supposed to park when they come home? Story 15. Ordering the most complex, difficult items on the menu 5 minutes before a restaurant closes. Story 16. A private equity firm buys a thriving, long-term business, for example J.C. Penney, Red Lobster, Joe & Fabrics, and Bed Bath & Beyond. It strips equity from assets such as the land the company sits on, sells that land to a parent company, and then charges rent that is 10 times higher. It takes pension funds that hardworking employees earned over decades, runs up debt and maxes out loans, and then declares the company a failure, files for bankruptcy, and closes it down. This is the blueprint for how Mitt Romney became a billionaire. Story 17. Members of Congress trading stock. Billionaires who are not philanthropic. Grabbing handfuls of free mints at a wedding. Taking out life insurance policies on your workers. Story 18. Standing up early and trying to get off a plane ahead of people seated closer to the exit. Story 19. Recording tragic events on your phone to get likes instead of helping or moving out of the way. Story 20. Watching videos on a phone at full volume in a waiting room or restaurant without headphones drives me insane. People who do that clearly lack basic self-awareness. Story 21. Driving slowly in the left lane, then speeding up when drivers behind you try to pass. Story 22. Declawing a cat is not like trimming a fingernail. It is equivalent to cutting off the entire last joint of each of your fingers. Even ignoring that reality, it forces cats to walk in a completely unnatural way, which leads to lifelong foot and back problems. I hope that as awareness spreads, declawing will eventually be illegal. Story 23. Building a large store in an area with many small shops, lowering prices until they cannot compete, and then raising prices after forcing them to close. Story 24. Not holding the door open for people entering a store behind you. Story 25. Giving out other people's phone numbers without their permission. Story 26. Destroying a victim's credibility in court just to win a case for a wealthy client is technically doing your job as a lawyer, but it takes a special kind of soullessness to do it. Story 27. Buying a company with friends and degrading its products and services. Story 28. If there are more than 2 urinals and someone is using the one at the end, it is not illegal to use the urinal beside them, although arguably it should be. Story 29. Anything someone else does differently than I would frustrates me. Story 30. Fail to say big stretch when a cat stretches to full length. Story 31. Implementation of artificial intelligence and layoffs to reduce costs. Story 32. Bidding $1 over the previous bidder on contestants' row on The Price is Right. Story 33. Scalping shit like those dipshits with Pokemon cards. I don't play it and don't care, but when I see those fat douchebags scrambling to grab every pack they can, it makes me want to fight them. Story 34. How about the woman who didn't give up her seat on the plane? She's a fucking hero in my eyes. Story 35. There is a man who goes around recording people in public while wearing an all-black mask. He does this silently to make them uncomfortable enough that they ask him to stop. People usually argue with him when he refuses, and if someone tries to push his camera away, he sprays them with pepper spray. I hate that man. Story 36. Mismanage, understaff, and underpay your employees while taking home exorbitant compensation. Story 37. Pretending to be an elderly woman to take a nanny job advertised by your ex-wife, who is in the process of divorcing you for erratic behavior. Story 38. Some people talk on speakerphone everywhere, even in crowded places. My dad does this. If I can hear a crowd in the background and know he is on speakerphone, I start the conversation by asking about his colonoscopy and whether he got his rectal exam results back. That stops it quickly. Story 39. If you change your mind about an item in a store, do not leave it in a random place. Give the item to a cashier or the first employee you see, and they will return it to the correct area. Story 40. Stopping your shopping cart in the middle of a busy aisle to check your phone. Story 41. A neighbor revs his car engine within the city's noise ordinance limits. For the past 5 months, he has revved it at 7:15 in the morning every Saturday and on public holidays for 2 minutes. I can tell which streets he drives down. I have not slept past 7:15 in the morning on Saturdays since September. He does not do it on Sundays, so I assume he has that day off, but he must work on Saturdays and wakes everyone up. It is not the end of the world. I can make something positive of it by starting my day earlier, but I wish he would stop. Story 42. Buying a used recreational vehicle for my family ended with 6 months of hell. I bought a used recreational vehicle last March for my family to live in while we were essentially going to be homeless for 6 months until our mortgage paperwork went through. I explained to the recreational vehicle salesman that I did not know anything about recreational vehicles and that I was looking at a cheaper model they had for $17,000. They offered me an as-is model, and I made clear that my only concern was that it had not been water damaged, was not prone to water damage, and that everything worked as it should. I did not care about interior cosmetic issues. I could fix those myself. Turned out it had extensive water damage. The refrigerator was non-functional because the shop had removed an important panel above it that controls the on and off function prior to the sale. After a week, we quickly learned that the floors would crack severely under certain weight, to the point that we feared we might fall through. It was so well hidden that I still get upset about it. The air conditioning had extensive black mold, so we did not dare turn it on and always kept the recreational vehicle ventilated for fear of getting sick. The control board was non-functional, as was the carbon dioxide sensor. The first time we encountered heavy April showers, water came inside. I tried to speak with the manager, but they told me to kick rocks and that they did not care. In their words, because I knowingly bought it as is. Some lawyers told me I did not have a case for the same reason. As they put it, the shop was within its legal right to sell me this broken recreational vehicle and I accepted it as is, even though I knew nothing about recreational vehicles and had trusted the salesman. Our family suffered for the next 6 months through Texas's worst cold fronts, heavy rains, and extreme heat. It still pains me to this day to recall what we went through while they knew exactly what they were setting us up for. Story 43. Letting go of a significant portion of your human workforce due to market challenges. Then voting to give your executives bonuses for another year of record-breaking profits. You continue to refuse to pay an already woefully inadequate share of corporate taxes, lobby for fewer environmental and financial regulations, and take no accountability or responsibility for the impact on everyone else. Denying legitimate medical insurance claims for profit. Turning healthcare and incarceration into profit centers. Special security operations. Meddling in the affairs of a sovereign nation with an attitude of impunity. Intentionally and maliciously spreading disinformation. Story 44. People who drive well below the speed limit and, when you finally pass them, either speed up as you do or tailgate you after you have passed them and are going 5 to 6 miles per hour over the limit. Story 45. Kidnapping the leader of another sovereign country, apparently. Story 46. Making a fortune using a state's tax benefits and then moving to a no-income tax state to avoid paying taxes. Story 47. Wearing white to a wedding as someone other than the bride. Story 48. He filed for over $10 billion in bankruptcies, bamboozled a bunch of idiots into thinking he was a savvy, successful billionaire, and then became president. Story 49. My mom bought me a pair of Ray-Ban Meta glasses with a camera for Christmas. The following workday, while I wore them, my coworker asked me why I did not use them to take pictures of a woman on the beach, soaking up the sun in her revealing bikini. Trust me, I love working on the beach and seeing beautiful women all day, but I am not going to take pictures of them with fucking spy technology. Dude, it's legal though. You're just taking pictures of the beach, he said. Anyway, this guy stares at women until they notice him. 10 out of 10 times they turn away in discomfort. It is fucking weird, man. I have called him out a few times now for it. And he always says some lame thing like, "Oh, come on, man. She wants me." Like, no, bro, you are 20 years older than her and you look like shit. Story 50. Private health insurance. Student loans that you cannot discharge in bankruptcy. Story 51. Taking off your shoes in a public place that is not a pool. Story 52. Looking inside people's cars in public or staring into people's homes from the sidewalk. Story 53. Leaving your shopping cart in the middle of a parking space instead of the cart corral. 1 point if it is left in an accessible parking space. Story 54. Paying off people's property taxes, specifically when you research and prey on people you know cannot pay it back, thereby acquiring cheap real estate and forcing them out of their home. Edit for everyone asking. You buy a tax lien on someone else's property. It is legal, and rules vary by jurisdiction. You can only do this if the owner is already delinquent. You pay the government's back taxes in full, in cash, and you obtain a lien on the property. They then have a certain amount of time to repay you plus interest. If they fail to do so, you can legally seize the property to settle the debt, effectively giving you a property for a fraction of its value. The biggest issue is removing them because they can choose to stay and then squatters' rights and a court battle become factors. If you do your research and pick a location where the land value is high, even if the house is damaged, you can make a lot of money. It is not a get-rich-quick scheme, but it often delivers value. The moral implications are the worst part, as you are essentially preying on people who already have many problems. Story 55. Burying your wife on your golf course for tax deductions. Story 56. Recording someone on your phone and not calling emergency services when they are having a medical emergency is effectively letting them die. The bystander effect is horrific. You do not get internet points for filming real footage of someone dying. If it means I keep my life, come and break my ribs. Cardiopulmonary resuscitation must begin immediately. By the time first responders arrive, it is often too late. You do not have to be perfect. Perform chest compressions to the beat of Stayin' Alive if that helps. Trying and making mistakes is far better than standing there and doing nothing. Story 57. Door-to-door sales. I do not want to know what you are selling at 9 in the evening on a Wednesday. Story 58. Avoid talking loudly on a cell phone in public, especially on speakerphone. Story 59. Being on speakerphone in a public bathroom. I don't need strangers hearing me go. When I'm feeling spicy, I'll make obnoxious fart noises. Story 60. Driving slowly in the non-passing lane on a two-lane road, accelerating whenever another vehicle attempts to pass in the passing lane, then slowing down after it returns behind you. Story 61. My neighbor burns wood in his fireplace more than 100 times a year, even on 70-degree days. There are no laws against it. The chimney smoke dumps straight down into my lawn, overtakes my property, and makes my 5-year-old sons really sick if they're out in it for any period of time because wood smoke is 12 times more harmful than cigarette smoke. I can walk out to my mailbox, and by the time I get back to my house, my clothes smell like I've been in front of a campfire all night. It's that thick. I had to spend $50,000 on home renovations to keep the smoke from infiltrating the house, including new windows, fixing a leaky door, basement encapsulation, air sealing the attic, and replacing leaky bathroom exhaust fans. I spoke with the city zoning and planning department, the Environmental Protection Agency, and the fire marshal, and there is nothing anyone can do because the smoke is coming from inside the home. He can legally burn trash there, which he does, and it's all legal. My neighbor just shrugs his shoulders and says, "Well, I had it cleaned and inspected. I don't know what else I can do. So yeah, fuck my neighbor. Hopefully he burns his goddamn house down." Playing the long game. Story 62. Going out with friends to a bar on your spouse's anniversary instead of celebrating it with them. Story 63. Being a jerk is enabled by a gap in society. You cannot call the police because they have not done anything wrong. At the same time, there is not much you can do except ask them politely to stop or remove yourself from the situation. A business may eject them if that is the context, but most will only do so if their behavior approaches illegality. Story 64. Buying an expensive item such as a steam cleaner or a car code reader, using it, and then returning it for a full refund. Story 65. Going to the beach with a Bluetooth speaker and blasting music that most people find obnoxious. Story 66. Rebranding low-quality Chinese products as your own niche brand. Bonus points if you have a strong reputation for quality and can do this on the fly. Story 67. In the United Kingdom, if you are pregnant, you can ask a police officer to urinate in their hat, and they must let you. You do not need to prove it either. Story 68. Using your small children for social media content, especially if it involves pranking them. Story 69. Forming a close friendship with a pedophile, taking free rides in his plane, attending his parties, socializing with him, and using his inventory would be illegal, so strike that from the list. Waging war on a sovereign nation without congressional approval, kidnapping the president and his wife, bombing fishing boats of other nations and killing their crew without detaining or inspecting them to confirm prohibited cargo, doing this as a distraction from documents that implicate you in using that inventory, and then redacting your name from those documents to obstruct transparency would be illegal. Groping modeling and beauty pageant contestants, some under the age of 18 and many of whom did not consent, would be sexual assault and is illegal. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.